Right, thank you. Right, good morning and welcome along to this morning's Planning and Rights of Way Committee. I'm Councillor Richard Butler, the chairman of the committee, and Councillor Jim Creamer to my right is the vice chairman. I'll remind you that, as you know, we're being broadcast on YouTube and which will also be available for future viewing. So, item 1 on the agenda is any apologies for absence, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I have apologies from Councillor Andy Meakin and Councillor Francis Purdue-Horan.
And I take it there's no substitutes, right, okay. Thank you for that. So item 2 is, do any members or officers have any disclosable pecuniary interest to declare? I think no. And do any members or officers have any private interests, pecuniary or non-pecuniary, to declare? No. Okay, thank you. So, and item 3, which is declarations of lobbying. Does anyone wish to declare any declarations of lobbying? No. Okay. So, minutes of the previous meeting, and these were held on the 28th of February. Members who were at that meeting, are you happy that they're correct and happy for me to sign? Thank you. So we'll move into the first of today's planning applications, and this is item 5. This is the variation of planning conditions for the Canalside Industrial Park at Cropwell Bishop. I'll move the recommendations, which are on page 25 of the report. Can I have a seconder, please?
Formally second and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you very much, Councillor Creamer. So I'll invite Mr. Hankin. Mike, you'll talk us through the application, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Yes, this is a planning application which relates to a Section 73 planning submission to vary conditions 3 and 12 of the existing planning permission for an inert landfill facility on land to the rear of Canalside Industrial Estate, Cropwell Bishop. The application seeks to allow a 4-year extension to the life of the site and remove the existing requirement to undertake junction improvement works on Kinalton Road. In terms of the site description, Canalside Industrial Park is located approximately. Canalside Industrial Park is located approximately 500 metres south of the village of Cropwell Bishop. The development site is located immediately to the rear of the Canalside Industrial Park and incorporates an area of 1.9 hectares. Vehicle access to the site is obtained from Kinalton Road via the existing Canalside Industrial Estate access road. The site was formally designated as part of a local wildlife site, but the ecological designation was denotified in 2020 due to a natural loss of the ecologically important grassland habitats, which have been succeeded with denser scrub, which is of a much lower ecological value. The site is located within the Greenbelt. In November 2016, planning permission was granted following a successful planning appeal for the importation of around 60,000 tonnes of inert waste material over a 3-year period to infill the void at the site and reinstate the ground levels to match the surrounding land. The planning permission was regulated by 28 planning conditions which sought to control the duration of waste imports to 3 years, the location of tipping within the site, delivery vehicle routing, vehicle numbers and operating hours, controls to limit mud on the highway, ecological controls, dust and noise emissions, floodlighting, site restoration and aftercare. As part of these controls, Condition 12 imposed a requirement to improve the visibility of the existing industrial estate access junction, to enhance the visibility to the south or left along Kinalton Road to a viewable distance of 82 metres from the existing viewable distance of 32 metres. A subsequent Section 73 application was granted in April 2019 to make minor modifications to the number of HGVs accessing the site. This planning permission was implemented on the 29th of November 2019 with a limited quantity of waste soils delivered using light goods vehicles. The use of light goods vehicles did not trigger the junction improvement requirements imposed under Condition 12, which is linked to the commencement of deliveries of waste using heavy goods vehicles. In terms of the proposed development, the current application seeks permission to vary Conditions 3 and 12 of the 2019 consent. The modification to Condition 3 seeks to agree an additional 4-year extension for the importation of waste to the site until the 28th of November 2026. The applicant states that the extension is necessary because of a combination of delays linked to the inability to implement the existing planning permission due to the coronavirus outbreak, an inability to resolve technical requirements in relation to the improvement of the site access, and delays in obtaining a waste permit from the Environment Agency. The modification to Condition 12 seeks to remove the existing requirement to improve the visibility of the existing industrial estate Kinalton Road junction prior to it being used for HGV deliveries to serve the inner waste disposal facility, and instead manage the movement of these HGVs by use of a competent banks person at the site access. In terms of the consultations, the council has received objections to the plan application from Cropwell Bishop Parish Council and Rushcliffe Borough Council. The Parish Council is concerned that the banks person arrangements are less robust than the previously approved junction improvement scheme. The Borough Council consider that it has not been satisfactorily demonstrated that the access arrangements are safe and will have adverse, and they consider it will have adverse amenity impacts. The Environment Agency and Notts County Council Highways have not raised objections to the plan application. In terms of plan considerations, the modifications requested to Condition 3 to allow a 4-year extension for the completion of infilling the canal side void. The report acknowledges that there have been some minor changes to the original planning merits of the development in relation to the access road improvements and the level of ecological benefit provided by the restoration of the site. However, the overall planning balance continues to be supportive of granting planning permission for the development to continue for a further 4 years, with the scheme considered to provide benefit by infilling an existing despoiled area of land within the green belt, which would provide visual, landscape and ecological benefits, as well as providing additional disposal capacity for inert waste. In terms of the requested modification to Condition 12, the original planning condition requiring the improvement of the canal side industrial junction was necessary to improve delivery traffic exiting the site. The policy and test in terms of assessing whether the alternative banks person arrangements now tabled by the applicant are acceptable is whether these alternative access arrangements would provide safe access to the development site. Advice has been taken from Notts County Council's Highways, who confirmed that the revised banks person arrangements will provide an alternative safe transport solution to overcome the deficiencies in visibility at the existing industrial estate junction, to manage HGVs departing the site in connection with the development in a safe manner. The traffic management arrangements therefore satisfy the policy requirements within Waste Local Plan Policy W314 and the Rushcliffe Local Plan Policy 1, which seek to ensure developments are served by a suitable means of access which does not cause detriment to the amenity of adjacent properties and ensure there would be no severe highway impacts compliant with National Planning Policy Framework Transport Policy. The recommendation, therefore, is to grant planning permission for the development, subject to the imposition of planning conditions listed in Appendix 1 of the report. These conditions have been updated to reflect the extended duration of tipping operations and the management of HGVs departing the site using a banks person as requested, as well as they have been more generally updated to reference the most up-to-date schedule of approved documents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hankin. We have two speakers on this item. We have Councillor Neil Clark, who is the division member for the area, and we also have the agent of the applicant as well. Just to remind members and visitors that the county councillor has up to 10 minutes to address the committee. I'm sure you won't. Yes, and other speakers have up to 3 minutes. And if you're still speaking within a minute of the deadline or the cut-off point, then we will advise you when there's a minute left to go. And if you're still speaking after 10 minutes or 3 minutes, then we ask you to stop speaking. So firstly, if I could have Councillor Clark, please, to address the committee.
Ah, right, okay. Thank you, Chairman. I thought it was usually the other way around, but never mind. Not to worry. So thank you very much indeed for giving me the opportunity to speak to this item. And really, I just wanted to raise some concerns from the local people and make sure that the committee are taking those concerns into consideration, because they don't object to the principle of the development and the proposal at all. It's really making sure that the committee have fully considered adequate safeguards in terms of road safety, etc., on the proposals, and it relates around to the provision of a banksman, and it's the feeling from certainly the parish council discussed it, and approaches from one or two residents that there's a bit of should we say concern about providing banksman. I think it's more a question of the reliability of it, of making sure the banksman is there when necessary, and also that the banksman is fully aware of what's required, and also the drivers of the delivery trucks are fully aware of what is required of them in making sure that the access into is perhaps not so dangerous. It's the egress out of the site, because the access road is at an angle to the main highway. It's not a full square T junction, if there's such a phrase. It's at a slight angle, so the visibility to the left of the driver is slightly constrained, which is the reason for the banksman. I just note in passing as well that the previous proposal from many years ago, it was before I became divisional member for the area, to physically alter the junction. I wouldn't have been in agreement with that anyway, because it would have encroached on the canal. So I'm more in favour of this proposal, but as I say, I really would just want to draw the committee's attention to and ask them to give full consideration to ensuring that the adequate assurances for the safety of this particular proposal have been fully taken into account, and that there are adequate means to ensure that that proposal will be carried out correctly in accordance with the requirements of the highways officers. So the other thing I would just mention, and fully concede there is a condition on for mud on the road. I'm generally on all developments, big developments, and I'm talking about housing developments and all sorts. There's always concern about bringing mud onto the road, and that happens. I have many examples in my own division, and I'm sure other councillors have similar examples in their own divisions of where development causes the contractors to be bringing mud onto the road. So it's really just that the committee are also assured that whatever arrangements are made for wheel washing, etc., that they are properly complied with, and that mud does not come onto the road, because that can cause quite considerable safety concerns. So, Chairman, it's really just making sure and being assured, as I say, that the safety aspects of the banksman, and it's not a question of when it's going right, it's when something potentially might go wrong. If the banksman doesn't turn up for any reason, or if something else doesn't happen, it's making sure that there are adequate arrangements in place to ensure that the safety of the public and other road users are in place all the time. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. All very clear and well within time. So our other speaker on this is Mr. Steve Cuthbert, who you're the agent, I think, for the applicant. So if you'd like to talk to the committee, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, I'm here today to support the Section 73 application to vary two conditions of the planning permission granted in 2016 for inert waste importation at Canalside Industrial Park, Cropwell Bishop. The application, as has already been said, has become necessary because of delays caused by a number of things: the coronavirus pandemic, technical highway and infrastructure issues, and pre-submission requirements of the Environment Agency permitting regime. I fully concur with the report before you, which has the support of both the county planning and highway officers. Approving this Section 73 application to vary two of the conditions of the planning approval will have no adverse effect on the amenity of the neighbouring properties, nor any highway safety issues resulting from its implementation. The proposed amendment to Condition 12 is in compliance with all local and national policy requirements and will provide a workable safe traffic management solution to regulate traffic exiting the site. The existing access on Kinalton Road enjoys unrestricted vehicle movements and can be used 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The access has been in use since 1990, some 33 years, with no recorded incidents nor accidents throughout this period. Two objections have been received regarding the application, one from Rushcliffe Borough Council and one from the Cropwell Bishop Parish Council. Both objections are on the grounds of highway safety. However, neither of these objections have been supported by the County Highways Authority. Should the application not be granted planning permission, it is likely that the importation works will not be implemented, as the proposal would be economically unviable. This in turn would lead to a reduction in capacity availability at allocated disposal sites for inert waste in the county. In addition, the restoration and 10-year aftercare management of the grassland will not proceed, resulting in further ecological deterioration of the land.
1 minute, Chairman.
Based on the information before you, I would respectfully request that you endorse the recommendation of your planning officer and approve the application. Should you have any questions, I would be happy to address them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Cuthbert. Members and officers, does anyone have any points of clarification or queries to raise with our speakers? I suspect not. No? Okay, thank you. So open up for this debate, discussion, decision. So Councillor Owen, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think this is a fairly easy and straightforward decision to make. I can't see why we would want to refuse it, because if we do, as I think the agent has just pointed out, we wouldn't get the reinstatement that we want, and that would be a nonsense. And so on those grounds alone, I think we need to support the extension. The only issue that appears to be a fly in the ointment is the issue of the banksman. And I understand Councillor Clark, as a local member, coming along to talk to us because he's got a couple of objections from a parish council and from the borough council, and like any good county councillor, he draws those to our attention. But I would respectfully point out that his own officers have said there's nothing wrong with what is proposed in having a banksman. So I don't know whether Councillor Clark's saying he doesn't believe his own officers. I certainly hope not, because I always do, as he knows only too well. So the issue of a banksman, I don't think is particularly significant, because I think, as has been pointed out, this is an industrial estate. and I can't imagine that the only lorries going in and out of the estate are the ones from this particular development. Therefore, do they have banksmen as well to negotiate the egress from that development? If not, then perhaps we ought to be asking why not. So it seems, in a sense, a bit unfair to impose this. But as the applicant is quite happy, it appears, to accept the proposal of a banksman, then I think we're more than happy to accept that offer and should go along with it. The one significant point that I felt Councillor Clark really did make was on the issue of wheel washing. This is often a huge problem, and as he said, we've all experienced problems where we've had developments in our own divisions, and I just wonder what we are going to do in terms of monitoring the effectiveness of wheel washing, because if it doesn't take place effectively, then the roads look a mess, and of course at times they can be dangerous with mud on the road, and it falls then, I think, to the district authority to go along and sweep the roads, which is an unfair burden. So I would like planning officers, to take note of my concern, Councillor Clark's concern, regarding wheel washing. But apart from that, I think we just need to support this and let them get on with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Yes, can anyone help us with the wheel washing comments? Because it is a known concern, not just here, but as Councillor Owen said elsewhere. But obviously, we're interested in this one.
Yeah, if I can defer replying to that for just 1 minute, we just the wheel washing is regulated under Condition 11. We've approved a scheme of back in 2019 when the original planning permission was granted. We're checking the historical record to see what the scheme is we've approved, but there is regulations on the planning permission requiring wheel washing facilities. But we're just checking what they are, so I can give you a precise answer.
Yeah, I wasn't disputing that, Chairman. I'm sure there are, and I think that's what we've been told. It's whether those are implemented and what we are going to do to monitor it, because wheel washing is applied to a lot of development sites. It doesn't stop them messing the road up, though.
The approved arrangements are for a rumble strip. So as the lorries come off the site, there's a rumble strip. Between the site and the public highway, there is a section of private road. As the vehicles enter the public highway, we will monitor the site, and if there is mud on the road, the condition requires them to improve the mud management scheme. If there's a problem, we will address it, but it's quite a common solution. Rumble strips on a site such as this, monitor it, and they tend to work. Or do they work?
Thank you. I hope that's helpful, Councillor. Good. Well, we like to be. And the point about the banksmen and the other businesses. I mean, I suppose it's the particular need for a banksman with this application is because of the volume of the likely vehicle movements and the size of them. Is that as opposed to some of the lorries that might be going to the other businesses? Is that the situation?
Well, the industrial estate, I believe, has been in operation there since 1990. It has lorries going in and out using this access. The access is restricted visibility to the left of about 30 metres, but the accident records show that it operates without incident. There's not a single recorded accident because of this junction. We can't, in this planning permission, we can't regulate the existing situation. What the policy test is the access acceptable for this development? And as part of this development, we've regulated that they put the banksman in, who will see further round the corner, to ensure that vehicles emerging in connection with this development have adequate visibility. So there's an existing situation which maybe is substandard to current highway standards. We can't change that, but this development has an improvement.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else wish to make any points or questions, or shall we make a decision on this? I don't see any hands going up, so we've heard the details of the application. We've covered the points and queries. Let's have a show of hands, please. Those in favour of the application, please show. And I think that's unanimous, but for the record, no anyone against and no abstention. So permission is granted. as per the report. So thank you very much for that, and thank you to our guests as well. You can escape now. The rest of the committee will have to wait a little while longer. Right, so we'll actually. I'm familiar with that site because I remember when this application first came up 10 or 11 years ago, because I was the ward member at the time, and I can't believe it's 10 or 11 years since it first cropped up. So
You're aging well.
thank you. You're too kind. Right, so we'll from almost the deep south of Nottinghamshire, we'll now go up to the high north. I was going to say frozen north, but I get told off for saying that. So this is item 6 on the agenda. This is Misson Quarry in Misson, and I move the recommendations as per the report. Can I have a seconder, please?
Formally second and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you very much. And Joel, Mr. Marshall, you'll talk us through this, please.
Thank you. Good morning. This item concerns 3 planning applications at Misson Quarry, including an application for a western extension and 2 consequential variation applications seeking variations to the restoration plans and conditions at the existing quarry. This is quite a small scale quarry operation, producing aggregates including a grey coloured mortar sand. The site has developed over its history with relatively small extensions as set out in the history in the report. The quarry is located in the Idle Valley, midway between Newington and Misson, accessed off Bawtry Road. It's remote generally from residential properties. There's a group of residential properties approximately 0.4 kilometres to the west, and to the east in Misson Village again, they're about 0.4 kilometres away, actually about 900 metres from the proposed western extension. Within 10 metres of the proposed western extension is a solar farm, and along the northern boundary there is a bridleway. The site for the proposed western extension incorporates 3.4 hectares of what is currently arable farmland, whilst also seeking to utilise the existing processing area and point of access onto Bawtry Road. The extension is anticipated to yield approximately 400,000 tonnes of mineral to be worked over 5 years, and that would maintain the output of the quarry. And mineral is generally worked in dry state using a range of mobile plants and then screened and then loaded onto HGVs. And so the access would remain the same, and there is a routing requirement that they route west. So HGVs route towards Newington and are not allowed to go east through Misson. We've got a picture now that will show the extension area, and that's looking south from roughly the bridleway that goes along the northern boundary. You may just be able to see the solar farm on the right hand side. Generally the extension would be worked in 3 phases, and the operator would probably work that in sub phases and allow farming of the areas until they are actually required for quarrying. The western extension, which is proposal 1 within the papers, affects the restoration levels for 2 previous permission areas, and they are proposals 2, which affects some restored areas of the site, and proposal 3, which is the current operational area. So we've got another picture that will show the restored areas of the site at the moment in the proposal 2 area. That's currently in year 4 of a 5-year aftercare period. We've highlighted there a sand martin bank, which is circled. It's unfortunately not been successful in attracting nesting sand martins. Also, there is about 200 metres of newly planted hedgerow, so both the hedgerow and the bank there for the sand martins would need to be removed and re-provided. So they're affected. So proposals 2 and 3 basically seek to amend the restoration schemes to allow the levels across the wider site to tie into that proposed western extension. And that the restoration upon the wider scheme would then provide a variety of habitat enhancements. The quarry floor would be predominantly restored for low-lying agricultural pasture, in keeping generally with the ongoing restoration. There's some additional wildlife ponds and areas of shrub planting on the plan. Similar ponds and habitats have been created on the restored areas already. The sloping banks of the extension would be restored predominantly to acid grassland and heather, and pockets of woodland. And the very western boundary, there would be a new linear hedgerow, potentially including translocation of some of the existing hedgerow, which I referred to earlier, that needs to come out. So in terms of the consultations, we have had objections from Misson Parish Council and Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust. The Parish Council originally did not object, but is concerned about the ecological impacts as raised by the Wildlife Trust in their consultation response to the applications as they were originally submitted. Following the initial response, Office have secured further information from the applicant, including additional surveys, mitigation measures, and an improved restoration scheme. Some of this was sensitive and could only be shared with the trust and with our own ecologist. On considering the amended details, the County Council's ecologist has confirmed that he raises no objections to the proposals, subject to planning conditions. The Wildlife Trust, meanwhile, have not responded to the updated information. Therefore, on the advice of the county ecologist, it is considered that the ecological concerns have been addressed satisfactorily, and there are those planning conditions to safeguard that. So the restoration would provide the benefits as well as agricultural grazing, and it's considered to meet the restoration policy objectives in the Minerals Local Plan. Briefly on other matters, it's to be noted that the western extension is formally allocated in the Minerals Local Plan. The need for the mineral is clearly evident in order to maintain the continuity of supply, including for the grey sand, which the plan makes provision for. The extension has come forward slightly earlier than anticipated in the plan, and the rates of output may be slightly higher than the plan forecast. However, the extension will be needed shortly in order to maintain the supplies to the local market. And therewith, lost my way. Thank you. In terms of other impacts, there will be some visual impacts from the bridleway along the northern boundary. It's a passing view, largely extending for a short distance the existing situation and view. And that would be a temporary impact while the quarry is worked, and then it would be restored, including with woodland planting along the boundary. Generally, planning conditions can adequately deal with all of the matters, including archaeology, traffic, its routing, control of mud, dust, and noise. A number of the conditions have been updated to bring them up to date and incorporate previously approved details. So therefore, the recommendation in front of you is in 3 parts, and it is to grant planning permission for the proposed western extension, and consequently to grant Section 73 variations to the wider restoration plans, subject to the conditions listed in Appendices 1, 2 and 3, respectively, in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall, and we have guests on this item as well. Councillor Tracy Taylor, who is the division member, and also Mr. Rhys Musson, who is you're the agent for the applicant. And will you be wanting to speak to us, or are you here just to? Yeah. Okay, right. So if we have any queries, you're there to answer them if need be. Super. So, Councillor Taylor, you have got up to 10 minutes. so make of it what you will. So over to you. Thank you.
Probably not appropriate to be facetious at this point. It won't be 10 minutes worth. Thank you, Chairman. I'm speaking on behalf of residents in Miston at the request of the Parish Council. And as you've already, as officers have explained, this is an extension. So this is a community who've lived with the quarry for a number of years. They're accepting of the industry and of the operator. That's quite part of their daily life. So the concerns that they've expressed particularly are around some of the mitigation around the ecology. So I was asked to clarify particularly the conditions and the way some of the conditions play out. I think it's probably worth noting at this point, if I can just read from the email that came in, because we don't get these very often and it's quite nice. So the message that came in was that we thank the planning officers for addressing with the applicant most of the concerns expressed in their and Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust's original objections to the application. So this is in terms of both mitigation around the wildlife and ecology and about a longer aftercare management plan, and they specifically acknowledge and welcome that aftercare management plan has now been extended to 20 years. So I just thought it was worth actually thanking the officers and the applicant and acknowledging that. The concerns that they have are around understanding the conditions that are in place, principally in appendices 1 and 3 under the ecology heading, around monitoring of removal and replacement of the banks, some of the activity on there. So we note that the applicant is required to submit written reports within 6 monthly intervals of work commencing. But there's some nerves and anxiety about whether, let's say these appear to be self-monitored conditions, and to what extent we as a local planning authority will actually robustly monitor the activity, whether that will be with in-person site checks, whether it will be some way validating the reports that are coming in. So some reassurance please simply about the vigour with which we will ensure that the conditions are actually applied and enforced. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Yes, just well, can we pick up on that? The monitoring of the conditions, how robust, how sure can we be, etc.
I think the general terms, we've got a robust set of conditions. We've got three robust set of conditions there, which will govern the new extension area as well as the existing operations. Allied to that is that we have an established monitoring regime at this quarry where our monitoring and enforcement officers routinely visit the site and check for compliance with the conditions, and that will continue with these new conditions should permission be granted. And that generally works. So it's a well monitored site, and we will pick up on things if they're not being adhered to effectively. So that reassurance is there for the parish.
Thank you, and also the very fact that the parish and yourself have raised that point and it's been responded to will be noted in the minutes anyway. So there'll be a record there that concern and comments were made. So hopefully that gives some reassurance. Right. Members, do you want any clarification with Councillor Taylor? Anything to raise with her? And likewise, I've got the opportunity now. We've got Mr. Musson here. If anyone's any queries for Mr. Musson, I sense not. So you've got off on that one then. So on having to answer questions. So let's go into discussion and debate decision. Would anyone like to make any comments or even progress things? Anything? So shall we go straight to a decision on this? Yeah. Okay. Well, we've had a detailed report. We've had a detailed presentation. We've picked up on the queries. So I think let's have a show of hands. Those in favour of the application, please show. And that is unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. So permission is granted as per the report. So thank you for coming along. And it's probably a bit warmer out there as well than in here. It's chilly in here, isn't it? So we'll go on to our next item, which this is a response to the Department of Levelling Up, Housing and Communities on the technical consultation on increasing planning fees and performance. So basically, this is our response to a government consultation, which you will have seen. Mr. Smith, Mr. Marshall, who's leading on this one? Oh, the screen. Content sharing has ended. Oh, we're back. Yes, great. So does this mean that people won't have seen our wonderful process and decision making just now? Oh, okay. So it's just perhaps it's while the presentations were changing over there. Right. Anyway, back to the response to the consultation. Joel, Mr. Marshall, please.
Yes, thank you. The report seeks approval to submit a response to the Department for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities and a consultation paper entitled Stronger Performance of Local Planning Authorities Supported through an Increase in Planning Fees. By way of background, planning fees are paid to the local planning authority in order to deliver statutory planning functions of determining planning applications, as well as formulating planning policy and things like our enforcement activity as well. The rates for the fees are nationally set, and they were last brought up to date in 2018 when they went up by 20%. To be noted, however, that most planning fees do not cover the actual processing cost of determining planning applications. There's research that there is a third, effectively a 33% shortfall nationally in the income that's needed. Local planning authorities are also reporting difficulties nationally with resourcing, with the ability to attract and retain the necessary experienced staff, including in minerals and waste. Developers, meanwhile, have reported delays with the system nationally and have called for increased resources and other strategies. For the government, they believe that developers, as the main beneficiaries of land value uplift once a planning permission has been granted, should bear the principal burden of funding the planning system, not the general taxpayer. So the first part of the consultation seeks views on proposed raising of the application fees. Major development proposals would increase by 35%, and all other planning application fees would go up by 25%. And this would come in force later on this summer, and the proposal is that the additional income would be ring-fenced for the planning system. Going forward, there is, and subject to legislation, there is a proposal to bring in also an annual inflationary uplift to the fees to provide longer-term certainty. Interestingly, retrospective applications would incur a doubling of the usual planning fee. This idea has been raised before by members of this committee, I know, and a certain amount of lobbying at the national parliamentary level appears to have been successful if these go forward. A further proposal is to cut back the ability or potentially remove altogether the ability for an applicant to have a free go when they make a subsequent second application of a similar nature. So the committee has asked for its support generally for the proposed fee, the general uplift in fees. Officers have drafted a number of points of response where further clarity is considered to be needed, and clarity is needed, for example, on whether fees would go up on certain other planning applications, and in particular the Section 73 variation applications. We deal with a lot of those as a Minerals and Waste Planning Authority, and the current fee for that does not anywhere near cover the processing, the costs of doing that, and so clarity is needed on that. The second part of the consultation regards the improved performance of planning authorities. So the fees will help, obviously, planning authorities to help improve their service. There are challenges nationally and everywhere in terms of staff retention and recruitment, and people with the necessary skills and experience. In the response, we've highlighted a lack of university course content on minerals and waste planning matters, as well as a need for more ecologists to support planning, including the new biodiversity net gain that will be coming in shortly. We're required to regularly report our performance to the department. We have to report on metrics in terms of the speed of decision making and on the quality of decisions. The latter is currently based on appeal decisions. Effectively, failing authorities can potentially have the planning functions piled back or taken away altogether. In terms of time, presently a planning application is deemed to be determined in time if it is being decided within the target of either 8, 13 or 16-week periods, or within an extended period of time as may have been agreed with the applicant. The consultation paper acknowledges that the extensions of time, they can serve a valid purpose to support constructive negotiations. However, there is a concern from the government that the inclusion of these time extensions is masking the actual performance of planning authorities, and therefore they're proposing that planning authorities report only, or they're scored effectively only on the statutory 8, 13 or 16-week period, and not including time extensions. So in our experience, particularly with major applications and environmental impact assessment applications which come before you regularly, these are rarely determined in 13 or 16 weeks in those statutory periods. They do need time to process the information, to negotiate better outcomes, and to resolve key planning issues. Even Section 73 variations, such as we've had 2 before you today, do entail significant work, and let's say they do often need to come to committee. Our view is that so long as the applicant has agreed to a time extension, then this continues to be the best way to measure the performance of planning authorities on the speed of their decision making. Going forward, they may look to change the performance regime and basically markers on a range of other scores and matters. The details are awaited on that. And a further idea they're looking at is something like a customer satisfaction measure of some kind. It's unclear how that would work exactly, and whether we'd be able to require an applicant to fill out a form at the end of the process and score us. We don't know whether that would work. So the report recommendation is that the committee considers the suggested response, and if there are any further amendments to be agreed, they can be incorporated, and we'd like to obviously respond to the department before the closing date later this month. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. So we have the report, which I'm happy to move as reported on page 114. Can I have a seconder, please?
Second and formally second and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you very much. So yes, this is interesting, isn't it? We've had consultation, asked questions, and indeed, as we've heard and read, at least one of our big bugbears and concerns that we've raised over the months has been picked up, and which I think is rather encouraging. That is the issue of the retrospective fees and situation. So I think we can hope that the government takes notice of this, and there we are. And as we've seen, as in the report, we've given detailed responses, but there is still opportunity for more suggestions and input from members should we so wish. So, Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And yeah, great news on the retrospective planning. I just want to ask a question on planning enforcement, which is paragraph 18, part of the metrics the government are suggesting we look at. Will that include enforcement of conditions of planning? Because if not, I think it should, and I would like that to go back to government. I mean, we heard today on the first application, I understand all the argument about access, but if you ignore that condition was voted through by this planning committee 4 years ago, and it's not in place today. Ignore all the reasons why I'm in favour that it hasn't, but the fact is we had a condition that this planning committee voted through and it hasn't been enforced 4 years on. Yeah, we had COVID, but it's been 2 years since then and still not there. Go back to when I was first put on this committee, Councillor Owen and I still receive emails today from people on Digby Avenue about a mugger that was supposed to be open for community use, that needed a community use agreement. We put that in as a condition. It wasn't 10 years on, it wasn't enacted. It came back to this committee last year, and as far as I'm aware, it's still not been drawn up. So all those things, it's great that we have conditions, and we should, but they need enforcing. So I'm pleased the government are looking at monitoring councils on planning enforcement, but I just wonder if there will be monitoring us on the enforcement of our conditions as well. If not, can we have that in, please?
Thank you. Yes, that's a good point. So monitoring of the enforcement. Can we?
I think it's one of those things that they're looking to add to the reporting regime. So at the moment, we're just reporting on the speed of decision and effectively whether we are successful in defending appeals effectively. So they're the two measures that they use, and they're looking to expand that to a range of things, including enforcement. The details of that aren't listed, but we can certainly support, I guess, the inclusion of monitoring effectiveness of enforcement. I think personally we have a good record of enforcement as a planning authority, but I think the details are lacking at the moment in terms of what effectively we would be asked and what we'd have to reply with. It may just come down to things like how many enforcement notices we have issued, or how many have been quashed or appealed, for example. Questions like that basically would give the picture to the government in terms of how effective planning is working. So we could look to we could look to add something in, couldn't we?
Particularly about conditions. It's not just enforcement of, are they getting on with the work? It's are the conditions being implemented quickly enough?
Yeah.
Because as I say, the Digby one, we're 10 years on and it's still not there. That's a condition. We should be delivering on that.
I think it's probably, is it question 17? We could probably add a reference in there that is that qualitative or quantitative? Question 18. Sorry. So we could add a comment on 18 in terms of no, that's quantitative. It's question 17, qualitative metric, and so yeah, we wouldn't object to that. It just needs to be practical for us, and that's fine. Yeah.
That's fine. If we just put a suitable form of words in that, and that's covered again. Councillor Cream, did you want to come in on this?
Yeah, on this one in particular, because I actually agree with what has been said. But we haven't actually looked. Perhaps we ought to be putting here some of the some new sanctions that would be available to us. Like if the planning condition isn't in, that and I'm not quite sure the sanction could be financial, or withdrawal of the planning permission, even if it's just temporary basis until it's sorted. But perhaps we ought to be looking at asking for additional powers to be able to, as you said yourself, some additional powers to be able to enforce them and enforce them quickly. I think that's the main issue. When people see planning as well, they're getting away with it. And we know they're not getting away completely, but to all intents and purposes, for the public eye, they are getting away with it. And just on the other one, agreeing again with this, totally 100% agreeing with the actual retrospective. Perhaps it should be 1,000%, but that's just me. But anyway, I totally agree with that, because it really is a bugbear, and it's really annoying when they just get away or seem to get away with it. So, all in favour of that. So yeah, perhaps we should actually be looking for additional powers as well as actually enforcing the ones we've got. So there's nothing in the recommendations that actually says we should have additional sanctions powers or whatever. I mean, I'll leave it to the planning expert. Should it be financial? Should it be removed, etc.?
Thank you. Because these points they do reflect on the committee and on the council as a whole in the eyes of the public and the people out there. So very very important points. Yeah. Those. And, absolutely agree. So sorry, yes. Do you want to come back?
If I could, thanks so much. I think in terms of Councillor Creamer's point about the need or desire for enforcement powers. Firstly, the consultation is about reporting performance. It's about the government understanding how well the planning system is functioning and trying to make sure that the proposed additional fee income is actually driving improved performance. So it's sort of it's beyond its remit probably to to perhaps go into the need for enforcement powers. There is, however, additional powers potentially coming through the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill, which is currently going through Parliament. So that there are provisions in there that add enforcement powers and change enforcement powers, particularly in terms of the time limits available for taking enforcement action. They are being extended to 10 years through the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill. So that is what we're keeping an eye on. It's currently in the House of Lords at the moment. So I think in terms of enforcement powers, I think it's probably beyond the remit of the report that we've got, the consultation that we've got, but it's certainly something that's on the national agenda.
So it's on the radar.
It's on the radar. Yeah, and it, if the bill is passed, then we will have additional powers.
Okay, I hope that's helpful. Councillor Owen.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to support the responses in terms of the proposed fee regime. I think the government's philosophy is quite right, that developers should bear the cost of the planning system, and that the council taxpayer or the taxpayer generally shouldn't have to pay as far as that is concerned. And it's most pleasing that this committee has such power and influence over government policy that they agree with us entirely in terms of retrospective planning application fees, and that they are going to, the proposal is to double them, and rightly so, at least double them, because retrospective planning applications always leave a nasty taste in the mouth with the general public. They think people have got away with something that they shouldn't have. We know differently, of course, they would have got planning permission if they'd have applied in the first place, so why on earth didn't they? And I hope this is going to be some sort of incentive for them to do so. Where perhaps I might disagree with the thrust of government suggestions or policies that they are formulating is in terms of the efficiency of the planning system. They always seem to want to measure the efficiency of the planning system in how quickly a planning application is turned round. Now, I always take the view that a quick decision isn't necessarily a good decision. And so often the decisions anyway are delayed because of reports that are required from external agencies. And I think that perhaps needs to be beefed up in any response that we are so dependent upon external agencies, and it's the council, the planning authority, that gets it in the neck, or that's what the government think they should get it in the neck. And the other area of efficiency is, of course, appeals that are overturned. Now, again, I don't think that that is a fair judgment of the efficiency of a planning authority. Those of us that have sat on planning committees, both here and in district council level, know that often the decisions are marginal and could go, therefore, either way. And either decision would be equally valid, but it's the elected members taking into consideration the views of the local people that enable them to come to the decision that they do. And I always say, if you can't argue a decision one way or the other in planning terms, then you shouldn't be sitting on a planning committee anyway as an elected member, because I'm sure I can always find, maybe thin at times, planning reasons why a committee should vote one way or the other. So that is not fair. And if your decisions are overturned on appeal, if you lose so many, then the government can take the power of your planning powers away from you, and that, in my mind, is completely and utterly wrong, and have always thought so. We are here to represent the views of people, and I don't see why we should be deflected in any way, shape, or form from doing that when we can put up valid planning reasons for making a decision one way or the other. I don't know whether anything can be worked into that. And it seems to me also that the powers of the planning inspectorate are far too great. We are the local decision makers, not somebody sitting in Bristol who hasn't a clue where we are, doing a desktop exercise, overturning decisions that we make. And I think that also needs to be assessed, that the powers of the planning inspectorate should be far more curtailed. I know this is probably revolutionary stuff, which won't go down too well, but there we are. Why care? I'm saying what I feel about planning after a number of years of sitting on the planning committee. And one last thing for improvement of efficiency: why on earth across this county don't we have one planning authority? Why do we have to have, 7 or 8 different planning authorities? We as a county council have certain planning powers, and then the individual districts do. What a nonsense. If you want to improve the efficiency, get one planning authority, and then developers within a county know who they're dealing with. And many of the outside agencies, like the Highways Authority, which the districts have to consult and then criticise the non-responses that they get, that would all be wrapped into one. But I fear that's a step far too radical to include in any of our
yes, thank you, Councillor Owen. I think people will understand where you're coming from with that. I think we're straying into slightly different territory with that one, but certainly your points about the matters about quick decisions and appeals, and also I do absolutely, well, personally, I feel the same about the planning inspectors. At the end of the day, as you quite rightly say, we are local decision makers, and that applies to all planning committees, whether it's a county council or the borough or district. And then it can be a little bit galling and frustrating, can't it, when things have changed? But that's the world we're in. Did you get all that, Joel? And furthermore, can you find a way of putting it into suitable speak to put into the response?
Just about, yes. I think it's.
We can watch it together.
In terms of time, the point taken about time, not being the only factor, and the fact that we are reliant on other parties playing their part, particularly you referenced other agents, and I think we look at consultees coming back to us in good time. That's one thing that can delay progress. You know, we are reliant on advice from the likes of the Environment Agency, Natural England, Highways Authority. You know, so it is more complicated in that way. I think on question 15 we can certainly add something there about that. You know, the speed of the system is reliant on everybody playing their part in that respect and responding in a timely manner. So that's fine. Then in terms of the qualitative, what they call the qualitative regime, which is reported on appeals that have been overturned effectively. And unfortunately, we don't have many appeals as a planning authority. They are very rare for us. And so we've never, we've not been affected by that score. But the point that you make is that obviously we are required to report on that at the moment. I think they're going to retain that, along with potentially introducing all of these other ideas of reporting, which are unclear. I seek a little bit of guidance as to whether we want to actually say anything on, is it question 18 in terms of qualitative. Here we go again. I think there might be a typo, but effectively 19. Is it 19?
Yeah, it's question 19 refers to the qualitative.
Potentially with members' agreement, we could add something in 19 regarding the current system, if you like, of having to report on the appeals being overturned, and that is a narrow measurement, effectively. And so
I think Councillor Owen is more expressing the frustration of the system. We have an appeals system that can override a decision taken by a planning authority. So there's more of an observation, I think. Well, no, I'm looking for clarification from you, and if you. I think we've got. We
can add something into 19 briefly, and I think actually that it's possibly why they want to expand the reporting regime to get the bigger picture of what goes on. That's the impression that I get. But yes, we can add something on appeals. The final point was about the planning authorities. That is beyond the remit of the report.
I think Councillor Owen was just he was using the opportunity to make his views known about a slightly different matter, but so there's probably no need to put anything in the response regard to that. I'm sure Councillor Owen will understand that. Right, thank you for that. Now, Councillor Camilleri, I was rather expecting you might want to say something on this, because bearing in mind what you have raised before, especially with regard to retrospective. Did you want to come in on this?
Yeah, not on. I welcome the report, by the way. I think it's really good. I think there's some really good things in it. I'd like to go on about the rates of the cost of planning. It's gone up, right? We had 35% increase now, 25% there. I like the idea of all charges going up by inflation or whatever they use every year to stop all this messing about with charges and banging them up and it looks big. I think it's good. It gives us more teeth, don't it, to deal with retrospective planning permission where it really sticks in my gullet, really. But it also comes responsibility, don't it? We're going to get more money. We should give better performance. I mean, it's about value. You don't mind paying for something if you get value for money. So that's what the government is trying to say. Let's get value for money. I think also, not only have we got to give value for money, also the developers have. We have large developments throughout the county now, don't we? Big housing estates going up everywhere. And I've got one at Lyndhurst, I can mention this. Lyndhurst development at Mansfield, so it's going to be a wonderful development. But it's the after, when they've built the houses and they've got the money and there's little bits to be doing, this is where it gets all messy. Who's responsible for the planning things then? Is it the district? Going back to Philip saying, is it the district? Is it us? We're getting massive problems adopting the roads because they're not done. And the place might have been built 4 or 5 years and still not got the road adopted. It's ridiculous. So we've all got responsibility to make it work. I think the government has given us this chance to do it. And I welcome it, and I think I'm looking forward to smooth planning applications going through. And when we ask for something to be done, do ask a developer to get it done, he gets it done, because our people live in these houses and they have to put up with the mess. And it's all right to sit here, but Lyndhurst now, they're struggling. We're having a lot of complaints about the performance from after. Thank you very much. Anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Cavanagh. Are you suggesting then, with regard to your comment you made about inflationary increases?
Yeah,
I
think that all council charges, where possible, should be done on an annual inflation rate increase or whatever they use, RPI, whatever, because it stops all this large increases. I mean, it's 35% now, which looks a massive amount. But you've not had one since 2017, so it averages out a fair rate. And it's ridiculous. We have this in charges all over the county, don't we? And all in the districts. They leave them, and then suddenly they have to put them up a lot. I think it's a good idea. Thank you.
So I wonder whether would be somewhere we could make reference to that in one of these questions.
Yeah.
It'd be an actual annual.
Yes.
Annual
yeah.
I think every year, rather than go through this, it should be linked to something, so we don't have to go through it. That's it.
Yeah, it's an observation, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think we've got it in question 6, and I think we are agreeing with that idea, provided because it provides the longer term stability, rather than these ad hoc reviews that tend to happen every few years. So we've got that covered, I think. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Any other comments or questions on this? I think we've had quite a lot of input on it, and it is a good report, and I know a lot of work's gone into it, and I thank everyone for officers and members for input on this. So we need to agree it and approve it to send it off. So show of hands, please, those in favour. And that's unanimous. Thank you very much, and thank you for your comments. And it is pleasing, isn't it, to see that a decision or things we said in this committee have been seemingly taken on board and taken seriously. So thanks everyone for that. We now move on to the final item on the agenda, which is the regular item, the Development Management Progress Report. Jonathan, Mr. Smith, please.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, an apology that we've not been able to. We haven't produced the usual list of applications received and determined since last committee. We'll provide a bumper version at next committee. We do have the list of applications due to come to committee, certainly at June committee on the 6th of June, and those that are bubbling under. And we'd be happy to take any questions that members might have.
Thank you. Do any members have any questions? No, righty ho. So we know that there are, well, as ever, there are interesting planning applications coming forward, and we will deal with them as they come to us. So thank you for that. So that's the final item on the agenda. Can I thank colleagues, members and officers for attending? And I know that many members, for one reason or another, are quite busy at the moment with other things. So thank you to those who have attended today for taking time out from doing other things to actually attend the meeting here. So with that, I will close the meeting at 11:45, and thank you very much. And we'll check the YouTubes off. Yes, I assume it is.